This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
It is the end of Obamacare. A federal judge in Texas ruled it unconstitutional. So what does that mean for your health care coverage? 20 million people under Obamacare. President Trump claiming victory.
And on the assumption that the Supreme Court upholds, we will get great health care for our people. We'll have to sit down with the Democrats to do it, but I'm sure they want to do it also. Thank you very much.
It's not going to be upheld. And, I'm against Obamacare as much as anybody else, but it's not going to be upheld because, it's a pretty tricky legal argument that even my Supreme Court-worthy brain has a difficult time fathoming. But I'm sure Stephen Tucker understands not only the health ramifications, but he also understands the legal arguments.
That's why we're welcoming him back to the program. Stephen Tucker, didn't the judge rule it unconstitutional because the penalty for not having coverage was eliminated?
Good morning, Amy and Bruce. And
Good morning.
He did, Justice O'Connor out of Texas, and it was a just ruling. But remember, it's not the first time that Obamacare was ruled unconstitutional. That was back in 2012 when they ruled the individual mandate as unconstitutional. And the current Chief Justice, who still sits on the highest court in the land.
He said with contempt.
Yes, he took out an eraser, changed the word fine, and wrote in the word tax, and allowed it to survive. So this justice decided to do the right thing and ruled it as unconstitutional. The concern that I have is the same 5 people that are on the highest court of the land that allowed Obamacare to survive that way in 2012 are still holding those seats today. So from this point, that ruling is going to go to an extremely conservative court in New Orleans, and it's going to be heard there again. And the chances are it'll either be struck down there or it'll survive there. My guess is survive, which means that the opposing team led by the state of California will push it all the way to the highest court in the land.
Well, let me ask you this, Stephen, because I'm only an attorney, and you're what? What are you, Stephen? Are you an attorney?
I am not an attorney.
Okay, but so
no.
that doesn't mean I know anything.
He's the founder and principal broker for healthinsurancementors.com.
Yeah, he understands Obamacare very well. I don't know that he understands.
That's why he's on the show.
What I glean from what you just said is that a lower court judge just overturned the Supreme Court of the United States. I don't think that's the way it works.
It is not the way it works,
Okay.
which is why it's heading back to the U.S. Supreme Court.
And so we'll have to see what Kavanaugh does.
Yes, I suspect it will survive there, and they will use severability, which they have used many times in the past, most recently in 2010, when they severed the Orwellian-sounding Public Company Accounting Oversight Board from the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. And that was stricken or severed from the rest of the law, allowing the rest of the law.
Does that have anything to do with the Glass-Steagall Act?
No.
Okay.
But anyway, it was severed. They let the law continue without that, and they basically called it unconstitutional, which it was because it removed the president's ability to remove these board members. So it gave them more power than the president of the United States, which, of course, violates our Constitution. So the U.S. Supreme Court has favored severability more and more in the past, and our new Justice Kavanaugh has actually alluded to the fact that the court must decide whether or not the individual mandate is allowed to be severed from the rest of the law. So he's already kind of hinting that that's where he will go. The truth is the law can survive without the individual mandate, although our friends on the left have argued that it's inseverable and it cannot survive without the mandate because it will hurt enrollment. However, enrollment in the exchanges has increased substantially since the individual mandate was repealed in the jobs and tax cuts.
And see, Stephen, Congress in 2017, in its infinite wisdom, kept Obamacare there. So what are we talking about? You're like undoing the will of the Congress if you find this unconstitutional right now. You can't. It's not going to pass. It's not going to go anywhere, and it shouldn't go anywhere if we really believe in judicial restraint. But let's get to something that's, to dollars and cents if we can. What do you say to the argument, the liberals make it all the time, 17 million people are going to lose their health insurance?
Well, it's actually 20 million people.
Or whatever. What do you say to
seriously,
that?
No, what does it mean for them who have the people who have Obamacare right now? Has anything changed?
nothing changed. I was up till midnight ensuring everybody had Obamacare that wanted it. So nothing's going to change for a very long time. If indeed it is struck down at the U.S. Supreme Court, which I doubt very much that it will be because of the aforementioned severability and the leaning towards that instead of striking down an entire act, then if it is, it'll be sent back to Congress, which is currently controlled by Democrats who will protect the law. So I don't think there's really anything in the end going to happen, even though as much I'd like to see some free market solutions and some options for people instead of paying more than their mortgage payment for health insurance. I don't suspect that's going to happen. But if it does happen, we already have multiple options for people, many of which existed before Obamacare, such as what took place last year in the state of Alaska. They asked for a 1332 waiver from Obamacare and then reinstated a high-risk health insurance pool, which was the law under HIPAA in 1996. It required states to have a high-risk health insurance pool for people who were denied coverage in the individual market, so they were guaranteed coverage there. So they got a 1332 waiver year before last, and they dropped their premiums by 25% by taking the sickest people out of the pool, no longer forcing healthy people to subsidize their premiums, thereby raising healthy people's premiums exponentially, and they dropped the rates for everybody else by 25%, and I suspect this year we'll see a rate drop of close to 40% in Alaska. So there are intelligent solutions that existed before Obamacare that we could go back to, and we're ready to go with those if Obamacare is struck down. So people will not be left without coverage for pre-existing conditions, because the truth is, since 1996 HIPAA law passed, both Democrats and Republicans have fought to ensure that people with pre-existing conditions will be covered.
No, that's not true, because I watched Jimmy Kimmel, and he says that we want to make everyone die, and let's face it, that's part of the reason that maybe Peter Roskam isn't in Congress anymore, and that I am represented now by a 32-year-old woman who lives with her parents.
Yes, Alexandria Occasional Cortex. Those are our leaders in the healthcare policy
She's
world.
28.
Yes.
Right,
but
so
Laura Underwood is 32.
Right.
In my area. Yeah.
She's up in your area?
Yeah. I live near
Really?
Wisconsin. I'm trying to escape to Wisconsin. See, Stephen, here's the problem. Here you sound rational, reasonable. You're talking about
He's smart up until midnight helping his clients.
No, pre-existing is covered, and it's all sane and rational. But you can't argue with the tweet attention span of the American populace as represented by Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, how do we win this battle?
Well, far be it from me to argue with noted healthcare policy expert Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel, please.
But we can win the argument by ensuring that we present our solutions in a clear and articulate way. The very first thing we must articulate is that since 1996, pre-existing conditions were covered, and they were covered and promoted to be covered and fought to be covered by both Republicans and Democrats. And the only reason we had any problems in only 5 states before Obamacare was because 5 states were violating HIPAA law by not maintaining a risk mitigation system for people in the individual marketplace. But 45 states were following the law, such as Illinois. We had our comprehensive health insurance plan called CHIP, and the people who were denied coverage in the individual marketplace got Blue Cross coverage even though they had cancer. I know this because I've been doing this for 23 years, long before Barack Obama was ever heard of, and I never was unable to offer someone health insurance no matter how heavy or how sick they were at the time. Now, how did I do that before Barack Obama? That is because 1996 law, HIPAA law, mandated that states have a risk mitigation system in place. So when someone came to me who were denied coverage because they were too heavy or too sick, we enrolled them in the comprehensive health insurance plan. It was our state's high-risk health insurance pool, and they were guaranteed coverage with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois. Now, they paid more than someone who did not have serious pre-existing conditions, but the premium they paid then is a fraction of what those people pay today.
Wow. So is there any possibility that the Democrats and Republicans will craft something new?
There is a possibility that the Democrats will craft something new, which will cost us even more money and be even less free market based because they control the House. But the reality is nothing is going to happen in the next 2 years other than government largesse increasing and our lower court appointments and other appointments being pushed through through the Senate because Republicans control the Senate, Democrats control the House. So we're going to be in an impasse for the next 2 years.
So nothing changes. So if you're, this plan, this Affordable Health Care Act, if your child is still on your parents' health insurance, they can still do that until 26?
Yes, never fear. The failure to launch clause is still fully enacted.
Because that's what helped me get out of the house. When I graduated from Iowa and I came back home, my mom said, well, you're going to have to be on COBRA. That's $300 a month. Or you're going to go out and get a job, which I always wanted to get a job. But that just was another motivating factor to leave.
And we should raise the age to 32 because my Congresswoman, Laura Underwood, should still be covered by her parents while she's in Congress. I think so. Do you agree with me, C. Stephen, that my Congresswoman, Laura Underwood, should be allowed, as part of the Illinois delegation to Congress, to go over to the Senate side and have Tammy Duckworth, perhaps, who is still like feeding her infant, feed Laura Underwood, and that giant sucking sound you hear will be, our health care premiums going up. Pardon my Ross Perot. I mean, this is ridiculous. I'm listening to a sober, sane C. Stephen Tucker, but because he doesn't have the canned audience laughter of Jimmy Kimmel, he can't win.
Oh, he's the best. So, C. Stephen Tucker, where can people get a hold of you if they want to purchase health insurance?
They can visit our website at healthinsurancementors.com. Everyone needs a mentor, especially with Obamacare.
Yes. There's your laugh track, C.
There
Stephen Tucker. Always a pleasure having you on the show. I always learn something. You're the best in the business. Again, healthinsurancementors.com. Founder and principal, C. Stephen Tucker. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.